Why do we snack? Because we have nothing better to do? Well, people who snack on almonds have something better to do. Almonds are heart healthy and full of energy, with the crunch that keeps you in the game. California almonds. Crunch on.
This is the Best of Mike and Mike podcast on ESPNradio.com. The Best of Mike and Mike.
Hey, it's Greeny. Here's what we've got for you on the Best of Mike and Mike podcast from Fort Worth. Plenty of debate over Peyton Manning's future, the catch that wasn't at Lambeau Field, Emmitt Smith, Cris Carter, Dean Blandino, and Jimmy Kimmel.
The Best of Mike and Mike.
Oh, my goodness. Back and better than ever. Mike and Mike live in Fort Worth this morning, presented by Progressive Insurance. Our guests all morning on the Subway Fresh Take Hotline, everything leading up to that building that you're seeing on ESPN2. Tonight at AT&T Stadium, Ohio State and Oregon play the first of its kind. But before we get to that, we get to all that we saw this weekend. The call from Green Bay. We will certainly get to that. But I think, Mike, out of respect, we have to start this morning with what may well have been the end of one of the great eras and the great careers in the history of American sports. Peyton Manning, that may not have been his last game yesterday, but I think it was his last chance. I don't think Peyton Manning, after as all in as they went on this season, is ever going to have a better team or a better opportunity than he had this year and this day. And he wasn't up to it, and they weren't up to it. And I'll be honest with you, we were watching it together. Yeah. It made me sad.
Yeah, it really did, the way this thing ended up. You know, and I agree with you. What John Elway and Pat Bowlen did, it was incredible. They absolutely, positively went for it this year. Absolutely. And this is exactly what they should have done when you have a guy like Peyton Manning. You need to do that, and they did it. And they were set up to get the win, and we saw what was going on in the last quarter of the season with Peyton Manning, with his throws, especially what was going on in the red zone, how they started going to the running game a little more. We're going to talk a lot whether he's going to come back or not, if he comes back or not. I agree with you. I think their chances are less. We'll see what happens around him in the AFC. But certainly I do think I put them back in the Super Bowl this year against the Eagles, so now both my teams are completely out. But I thought they would have enough to get back the way they loaded up for it. So even if he does come back next year, I would agree with you, at least for now, that certainly it wouldn't be as stacked a team or as hyped as I went into thinking what they could do this year.
I would anticipate significant change coming in Denver. There's all the speculation already about the future of Coach John Fox, and we'll see if he winds up coming back there. Now, if Peyton Manning is going to be your quarterback, you're still going to build everything around him anyway. So I don't think the notion that they're going to, quote-unquote, change the system.
No, they've got plenty of weapons still.
Applies there. But they're unable to use them. Now, look, he didn't get any help from Demaryius Thomas yesterday with several startling drops. He has developed a case of the drops, has Thomas, but that wasn't the factor. No. Peyton Manning can't throw the ball down the field.
He just can't. Listen, as we've talked about, he didn't come into the league with a 98-mile-an-hour fastball, but it was certainly good enough to do all the things that he had done. And what you learn to do is when you get lose a little even off your fastball, if it isn't the fastest in the world, you find other ways to adapt. And that's what he's done. That's why he's going to go down as one of the greatest quarterbacks of all time. But at some point you hit a line. And you wonder if he's at that line now where it wasn't the strongest arm in the world, but there's just not a lot on it anymore. And even that, forgetting the not a lot on it, the overthrows, 8 overthrows on the deep balls. And I get it. Coverage was there to go to the deep ball, and we saw him certainly complete one for a touchdown. But other than that, it was overthrows. And, there was just – normally there's not a ton on his ball, but it usually gets where it needs to go. It just doesn't look that way anymore.
Now, listen, I can finally say what I've been wanting to say for 6 weeks, and that is baloney. All these people who have been telling me, no, the Broncos are just incorporating their running game because that's the way you're going to win in the playoffs, and they're just changing strategy. There's nothing wrong with Peyton. They were either wrong or lying all this time, and that's what I suspected, but I couldn't prove it and I couldn't say it. Well, now I can, because that was not about a team trying to develop a running game. That was a team that when they lost Julius Thomas, all of a sudden their red zone production went from 100 to 0. And that's far too big a drop-off for everyone telling me, well, it's only Julius Thomas. I'm sorry. Julius Thomas is a great player. He's not the second coming of Lance Allworth and Tony Gonzalez mixed up together. Something was wrong with Peyton, whether it was injury, whether it's fatigue, whether at this stage of his life with what he's been through. This is not meant to be a criticism of Peyton Manning.
No.
He's one of the greatest players that ever lived.
This is life.
No, this is life. This is life with a surgically repaired neck and a long year, and it wears down, and eventually he just can't throw it anymore. And at this point, he just can't throw it anymore well enough to compete on a level with it. Listen, with all due respect, I love Indianapolis, I love the Colts, I love Andrew Luck. That's a very, very slightly above average football team that beat them yesterday and beat them soundly. They didn't look that good against Cincinnati last week. They didn't look that good basically the entire season, and they, for the most part, dominated Denver's offense. They did.
Now we'll get into it. They go to New England where there will be at least a 7-point underdog, deservedly so, I think, in that game. But I completely, there's nothing you've said that I can disagree with at this point. Manning's not going to make I'll say this. He's not going to make a quick decision. And as I've always said, don't listen to any player that does make a quick decision. This is one that's going to need a little bit of time, but he is going to have to, and no player wants to admit they don't have it anymore. But we know the level that Peyton Manning wants to be at. Everybody wants to be at their best level. And we've heard Kobe Bryant say, listen, I'm not going to be an 18, 19, 15, 16-point a night scorer. I'm not going out that way. These guys are at a level, and they want to stay at the level. And in a few months, when Peyton Manning heals up a bit, he's going to have to decide, am I going to be able to do this? Am I going to be able to play at the level that I want to play at? And for a professional athlete, it's very difficult to talk yourself out of that. You'll find more reasons to talk yourself into why you can do it than why you can't do it.
I understand that part of it, but here's the problem. Peyton Manning in May is fine. And Peyton Manning in August and September and October are fine. But this year, when it got to November, and particularly December and now, it wasn't fine, and you won't know that. I tell you what, the one thing I'll say about Peyton, I think his self-evaluation last night was very honest. We're Mike and Mike presented by Progressive Insurance, where they'll compare rates for you so you get the best deal even if it's not with Progressive, saving you time and money. Now that's Progressive. Call or click today. Let's hear a little bit of it. Here's Peyton Manning after another disheartening first-round playoff loss.
Not good enough. Didn't play well enough. I give them a lot of credit. Their defense played well, and their defense forced us into some bad execution. But I thought we had some chances as well, and thought I could have played better.
Now that's a very honest self-evaluation because yes, the defense played well, but the defense isn't the reason. There were a lot of passes, Mike, that seemed to be going nowhere. Just seemed to be going to no one and dramatically overthrowing guys. Now you were telling me, and I was watching Mark Schlereth was tweeting also that the coverage was dictating that he was throwing long. Yes. And you were saying he's going to keep throwing long. Well, that's not an accident, right? They obviously decided, let's make Peyton Manning throw the ball long. He can't beat us that way.
Yeah, that's what they wanted to do. That's the coverage they were going to be in, and that's what, listen, the coverage was there a lot of times, and a lot of times you trust your guy to go get the ball, but the balls weren't even in an area to catch, going out of bounds or being too deep. You heard the analysis on the game, maybe wait another beat before you throw the ball. The 8 overthrows, he's had that before, but you don't see it often to have the timing off like that the way it was. But they're not going to change it. That's just something that Peyton Manning has to adjust to. This is what you work on all week, the game plan. And Peyton Manning's not running off the field and saying, you know what, if we get that coverage again and I'm going to go deep, let's not do it because I just don't have it. That's not going to happen. If the coverage dictates it, he's going to keep running that, and he's got to throw a better ball.
But normally you would not expect, at least I would not have expected from a guy who is, well, let's just let you hear it. For those who haven't heard it, this was Peyton Manning last night answering the question about whether he plans to come back again next year.
Yeah, I guess I just can't give that simple answer that I hadn't processed. I'm processing it, so I can't say that. I could not say that.
I think a lot of people were a little bit taken aback that he said that. Well, normally, even for a guy who winds up retiring, you'll hear him say, I plan to play, I want to play, I want to play. You didn't hear him say, I want to play.
Peyton Manning is a measured guy. He's a measured guy in what he says, and I think, as I said, players don't want to ever admit to their shortcomings or admit they can't do it anymore. But he's also a thinker. He understands that, and I think he knows it's going to take some time. But what you said is correct, that even in May when you feel good, it's the end of the season we're worried about. But he's not going to know that until he sees how he feels and thinks, I think he's going to come back. I think he's going to play another year. I think he's going to believe that he can get it done.
Trent Dilfer does, too. Here's what he said after the game last night.
Everybody push the brakes a little bit. He's not done. Now, he also has some limitations, and he's had these limitations the last couple of years. Unfortunately, what we've seen at the back half of the season is he's starting to recognize those limitations. It's affecting some piercing-type throws, but it's affecting his decision-making process also, which is really concerning. For some reason, Peyton Manning doesn't trust his athleticism enough to get 5-6 yards when there's 25 yards of open space. It was concerning to see Peyton Manning allow some of his physical limitations affect his decision-making, because his decision-making is what separates from all others.
So, Mike, what you're hearing Trent Dilfer say basically is that Manning, understanding what he can't do now, isn't pulling the trigger. The one thing Peyton Manning has always done is anticipate and gets the ball there. Even though he doesn't have the strongest arm, he gets the ball there. That first drive yesterday, he looked fantastic. They go up 7-0. I think Denver's going to. We both picked Denver to win and cover.
We did. He dropped that deep ball down the left sideline. It was beautiful.
And the touchdown pass in the back of the end zone is a beautiful pass. And then what happened? I mean, from that point forward, it went completely away. Maybe that is where you would have to tell me, maybe that's where Indianapolis changed up coverage. Because, Phil Simms was showing it to you over and over and over again. They were just forcing Peyton Manning to throw the ball down the field, which suggests that the defense, is confident he doesn't have that in him.
Yeah. The timing was whatever was off on the deep balls. And let's give the Colts credit. Now, they had great coverage. Even the balls, shorter balls that Manning was throwing, there was good coverage on those passes as well. And when you have the good coverage, obviously anticipation is key. But then that's where you could use a little zip, putting it in that smaller window in good coverage, and it just wasn't there. It just wasn't there for a guy that normally doesn't have a fast ball. Now, here we go again, burying Peyton Manning when we've been doing that for the last couple of years. We're a year removed from the greatest regular season of all time by a quarterback. But when you are older and you're nicked in any way, it magnifies a bit. And I think that's what we saw, especially the last quarter of the season, because I'm with you. I mean, all of a sudden saying, well, you need that running game. You knew they were going to say that. They weren't going to say, well, we just don't know if Peyton, can throw like this. This was reminiscent of a couple of postseasons a couple of years ago when they really didn't let him throw. Remember at the end of
the year they lost to Baltimore, they didn't let him throw on a third down, and wound up in overtime and wound up losing that game in overtime.
Yeah. So again, I do think he comes back, but it was there for everybody to see the last 5-6 weeks of the season.
I mean, whoever would have thought you would see a team with a defensive strategy of, let's force Peyton Manning to beat us.
Yeah.
He can't beat us. Let's bottle up the run. Let's take away the short stuff and make Peyton Manning beat us over the top because he can't do it.
You know what was interesting in both games? Because for the Cowboys, that was somewhat the plan as well. How about that? Try and take Eddie Lacy, out of the game and make a in-the-pocket Aaron Rodgers beat us. So you're talking about two of the greats, and they were limited in their play.
Well, for different reasons. Obviously, Rodgers limited with the injury. Peyton Manning limited by time, by age, perhaps by injury. Father Time is undefeated. How many times have they said that?
Yep.
I'll be honest with you. Watching that game yesterday, again, we were together. I felt sad. I felt sad watching it because Peyton Manning is one of the greatest players that's ever lived. The Manning haters are going to come out now. Everyone's going to talk about his playoff record and all the rest of that. And look, and all of it is true. There's nothing anyone can say to defeat that or to diffuse that. That is his legacy. He is, in the regular season, the greatest quarterback I ever saw. In my lifetime, I go back to the 70s. Mm-hmm. That's how old I am, and to be able to have watched football with my own eyes. In my lifetime of watching football, something in the neighborhood of 40 years, in the regular season, he's the best quarterback I ever saw. And in the playoffs, he's not even close. In the playoffs, he's not in the top 10.
9 times now he's lost in the first game of the playoffs.
And many of them looked bad.
Yeah.
Now, again, I don't want to put yesterday, and I'm hearing people say Peyton Manning choked yesterday. I don't buy that for a second. I think the truth is actually a little worse. Peyton Manning looked done yesterday.
I think his limitations were really magnified yesterday, and it was tough because you always like to see your greats go out on top, and obviously that doesn't always happen. The guy who's his boss right now was able to do it in John Elway, and again, to their credit, they set up everything to try and have this team kind of do the same thing with Peyton Manning.
It was an incredibly dramatic day of football yesterday. That was the second game, obviously. Congratulations to the Colts and the terrific young Andrew Luck. They'll go take another shot at the Patriots next Sunday, and we'll see what they can do. That game, of course, followed a call. I said for the second straight week, we had a call that is going to be the topic of conversation around the National Football League. This one, 1,000 times more so than a week ago. And we'll tell you what we thought of it exactly 1 minute from now after this word from Myrtle Beach. Mike, spring is just around the corner. And to golfers, that means it's buddy trip time, and no place caters to buddy trip golfers quite like Myrtle Beach, South Carolina.
Yep, Myrtle Beach offers a selection of 100 golf courses, great restaurants, affordable off-season rates for oceanfront hotel suites, fairway villas. Courses include some of the top-ranked layouts in America, designed by some of the biggest names like Nicholas Palmer, Player Norman, and so many others. Turn your driving time into extra tee times with affordable nonstop flights from over 25 cities like New York, Boston, Chicago, Cleveland, Pittsburgh, Toronto, and enjoy hundreds of great restaurants that cater to golfers with cold beer, juicy steaks, and, of course, fresh seafood. Easy to see why Myrtle Beach is at the top of the leaderboard for selection, value, and affordability. Start planning your spring golf getaway at MyrtleBeachGolfHoliday.com. Be sure to request a free online iQuote for the best package rates. Myrtle Beach, South Carolina is where America goes to play.
Blitz is coming. He throws a deep ball to the left side, and the ball is Bryant caught the ball and is dragged down at the 1. I do not know how Des Bryant accomplished that physical feat. Oh, my goodness.
After review, it has been determined that the receiver did not maintain possession of the football during the process of the pass. The ball comes loose, hits the ground. Therefore, the ruling is an incomplete forward pass. That was Dallas' 4th down. They will lose the ball on a change of possession on the down. It will be Green Bay's ball 1st and 10 at the 32.5-yard line.
And the Dallas Cowboys would never get the ball again. 105.3 The Fan, the play-by-play call out of Dallas for the touchdown that wasn't for the Dallas Cowboys in what was a classic. I tell you what, we were looking forward to a good weekend of football, and we certainly got it. In 2 of the 4 games, we had classic, epic battles. New England-Baltimore is one of the great playoff games you're ever going to see, and this one, for drama, certainly lacked absolutely nothing. The Cowboys with the lead almost all of the day. Aaron Rodgers playing on one leg, bringing his team back with an absolutely sensational second half. But all anyone is going to talk about is that play up the sideline with Des Bryant making the catch, stretching towards the end zone, not keeping the ball fully secure as his arm is extended toward the goal line, and Gene Steratore, as you heard, making the decision that he did not complete the catch, quoting essentially what is known around the NFL as the Calvin Johnson rule. Golick, once and for all, was it the right call?
Well, I mean, in the way they're calling this rule, I understand why they're calling it. The part I disagree, and I heard so many former referees talking about this, is forgetting everybody talking about the steps he took. The steps when you're falling down seem to not matter. If you're in the field and under control, obviously it matters. But if you're falling down, it doesn't matter the number of steps. But when I heard the steps don't matter, and then I heard a couple of refs say that I don't think he reached enough for the end zone, that's kind of where I disagree. I thought it's almost, you believe it, it's like Des Bryant is getting penalized for trying to make a play.
Yeah.
He's getting penalized for trying to be too athletic.
If he just goes to the ground and doesn't stretch for the goal line,
not an issue.
Then it's probably not an issue because he probably just keeps the ball cradled to his body.
That's exactly
but by
right.
trying to stretch out and score, which I think could be defined as making a football play.
That's the difference where I see. Is they decided he didn't stretch it enough to make a football play. I thought he did. I thought he reached out for that goal line, which would make it a football play, which would have given them the completion there. But their ruling was it wasn't enough of a football play in their eyes, so they overturned it. I mean, we know this rule, so we shouldn't be shocked by that rule. But I did think, and I get the no steps because you're falling down, but I really thought he made a reach for that goal line.
So did I. But I tweeted before they came back from commercial, it's not going to be a touchdown. It's not a touchdown because that's the way they call the game.
Right.
NFL Rule 8, Section 1, Article 3, Item 1. Player going to the ground. If a player goes to the ground in the act of catching a pass with or without contact by an opponent, he must maintain control of the ball throughout the process of contacting the ground, whether in the field of play or the end zone. If he loses control of the ball and the ball touches the ground before he regains control, the pass is incomplete. If he regains control prior to the ball touching the ground, the pass is complete. Now, that doesn't fully take this situation into account because the ball doesn't touch the ground after he loses control of it. In my opinion, he has control of it. The ground is the reason he loses control of it. He regains control of it without it touching the ground. The bottom line of it is this. The rule stinks, okay? What's the old 100 drunks in a bar, right? The 100 drunks in a bar watch that play and it's a touchdown. If you're playing pickup football, flag football, touch football with your friends, and you make that play and someone tries to tell you it's an incomplete pass, there's going to be a fight. But the reality is, by the letter of that rule, which is absolutely awful, that's an incomplete pass.
It is an incomplete pass. If the sticking point is reaching for the end zone, and that's what I was led to believe, were you not as well? That if he reaches for the end zone, it is now a football play, and that would have been a completion.
But they deemed he didn't.
No. I'm just saying.
Yes, of course. If you're making a football play.
My point is that's the defining thing here, right? And if that's the defining thing, then personally, I think he was reaching for the end zone. So if that's the difference, if you're going to tell me it doesn't matter and the ball hit the ground and came loose, then so be it. There's nothing you can say about it. It was an incomplete pass under that rule. But if you're telling me if they reached enough, if the refs felt he reached enough for the end zone, that would have been a football play and it would have been a completion. If that's the case, I think he reached for the end zone.
Here's the thing. It doesn't really matter because whether he's reaching for the end zone or not, he never completed the act of making the catch. The act of making the catch has to include going to the ground.
Well, see, here's where we're differing then, because I heard referees saying that if they felt he reached for the end zone enough that was a football play and this would have been a completion. That's what I'm trying to find out. That's all I'm saying, because as I just said, if it doesn't matter whether he reached for the goal line or not and the ball came out, then so be it. Then that's the rule. But I heard a referee say if he reached out, lunged for the goal line, that would be considered a football play, and then that would be considered a completion. That's what I'm going off of. Maybe I heard it wrong. Maybe I'm not correct about it. But if that's the case, and because I think he was reaching for the end zone, and if in that case it would have made it a completion, it should have been a completion.
I understand.
Now, if that's not the case, then the call was what it was.
I understand completely what you're saying, but we're not having an argument. We're saying the same thing.
Right.
He has to demonstrate that he has caught the ball. In order to make a football play, you have to have caught the ball. He hasn't officially caught the ball until he hits the ground, unless he has caught it, taken multiple steps, and made a football play. They're saying, and you heard the referee say it, that those steps don't count as steps because he's falling, not running with the football.
Right.
So the point is, they're telling you it's not a football play when you and I are both saying it is a football play.
Well, the steps I understand because he's falling down. It's the reaching for the goal line is my sticking point. If reaching for the goal line is a football play, I think he made a football play.
Right. I think you think I'm disagreeing with you, and I'm not disagreeing with you. I think we're just saying the same thing two different ways. We're in the midst of talking about the call that ends the Cowboys season and sends the Green Bay Packers on to the NFC Championship game. Here's Des Bryant right after the game.
I didn't. I took 3 steps. You seen that, right? Have you ever seen that rule before?
Kevin Johnson.
No. It wasn't like that. I'm reaching for the touchdown. I'm trying to score. Trying to break the play.
As Des Bryant explaining what you were saying, Mike, is that there's a difference between not controlling the ball all the way to the ground and having such control of the ball that you are actually reaching and trying to stretch it over the goal line when it becomes jarred loose from your grasp. That's I think we were both saying the same thing.
Right,
is that if you have to take the ball all the way to the ground, unless if you've caught the ball and you've run 20 yards and then you fall down and it's a fumble. And in that case, he would have been a fumble, but he would have recovered himself in the end zone. They'd have taken it out to the half-yard line or whatever the case would have been. What the rule is, by the letter of the rule, and it was, in my opinion, correctly enforced by Gene Steratore, and I hate the rule like I can't even put into words, they determined that he's not making a football play by stretching for the goal line. Des Bryant can't believe it. You don't sound like you agree, and neither do I.
I think going forward, so by the letter of the law, we see what they call. We may not like it, just like you may not like the speed limit, but you have to follow it. So the key thing will be is they review these every year, different rules every year, and we'll see if something's done. We'll see if this is tweaked or changed outright. But right now, that was the call, and it seems most people say, okay, we may not like it, but it's the rule.
Let's hear a little more from Des Bryant.
I ain't never seen nothing like it. Never seen nothing like it. I was sure. I tried to reach for the goal line. I don't even understand why it was even a challenge. I took 3 steps. I'm reaching for the touchdown, trying to break the play.
So that's his point, and it is the right point to make. If you're in his position, or if you're on the side of arguing for this being a catch, you should not be arguing he maintained control all the way to the ground, because he obviously did not.
Right.
You should be arguing he had established control before he went to the ground.
And I was reaching for the goal line. I get it from his side. He feels himself taking the steps, but we hear the officials saying that part of it going down doesn't matter. So I get it from Dez's part, and I get it from most every human being watching that play are saying that's a catch, but under the rules, it is not. So, but there was plenty, just like last week when the Cowboys were involved in the play against Detroit, you know where there was? There was plenty of football after it. Or there was still enough football after it to not dictate the outcome. This obviously would have been a huge play. It would have put them in position to score. I believe they would have scored. And then Green Bay's got to come down and score themselves. So make no mistake, it's a huge play. But still, there is game to play after.
Yeah, they never got the ball back.
Right.
So Dallas' defense has got to get the ball back. Right. Dallas' defense couldn't stop Aaron Rodgers the entire second half, and I have a variety of thoughts on that. But before we get to it, let's hear from Gene Steratore. So here's the referee after the game, and this was his explanation. So the officials, there's a pool report. Right. So a couple of reporters, a small number of reporters, get to go in and ask questions to Gene Steratore, and then that gets disseminated throughout the media. So here it is. On what was the determining factor in calling it an incomplete pass? Quote, although the receiver is possessing the football, he must maintain possession of that football throughout the entire process of the catch. In our judgment, he maintained possession but continued to fall and never had another act common to the game. We deemed that by our judgment to be the full process of the catch, and at the time he lands and the ball hits the ground, it comes loose as it hits the ground, which would make that incomplete. Although he repossesses it, it does contact the ground when he reaches, so the repossession is irrelevant because it was ruled an incomplete pass when we had the ball hit the ground. So that's the point that I'm making.
I get that, yes.
It doesn't hit the ground again. But it doesn't make any difference because it was the ground that jarred it loose in the first place.
Once it hit the ground, that made it incomplete.
On whether or not Bryant's elbow hit the ground before the ball did, quote, when you're still going through the process of the catch, elbows or knees are irrelevant. He must complete the entire process with the football, maintain possession throughout. On if he was able to see the ball hitting the ground on multiple angles, yes, there were a couple of angles that showed the ball actually hitting the ground and then the receiver losing possession of it as well. There isn't any question it hit the ground. And then finally on who makes the final decision. Is it New York or is it a joint decision? He says it's a joint decision. Now we're fortunate to have ability to communicate with New York and have additional input, which helps with judgment. A referee on the field and in the booth to be able to have that communication. It's a joint effort. Let me make clear. I'm not criticizing Gene Steratore today. Not for that play anyway.
No.
I thought there was unbelievably bad officiating in this game before this. But in that particular play, I think the problem is the rule. The rule is ambiguous. It does not leave open. Look, I don't think Dez Bryant is making that up. I mean, say what you will about Dez Bryant. I think he's genuinely telling you he caught the ball and he's reaching for the goal line.
He felt himself take 3 steps as he was going down and reach for the goal line. Absolutely right.
So in this case, I think the rule does not cover the situation well enough. You know what I mean? The Calvin Johnson play was not this.
No, it was not this at all. And I think this rule, maybe it won't be looked at. I don't know. It seems like it will be, but it's amazing. If Dez Bryant just catches that ball and goes down, there's no issue at all. But he's actually got penalized for trying to make a play after that and get that ball into the end zone.
Well, let me ask you the reverse question. If that catch is upheld, if McCarthy challenges it and the catch is upheld, regardless of the outcome, well, if the Packers still win, then it diminishes the question.
Right.
Let's say that catch is upheld, the Cowboys score, and they win. What is the level of controversy today about the catch being considered a catch? Is it equal to, greater than, or less than this controversy?
You mean from last week?
From us. From all? No, I'm sorry. If they rule that a catch and the Cowboys win,
I think it's greater.
Is the yelling and screaming today greater than it is now?
I think it's greater, especially because there's a lot of Cowboy haters that think it's going to be that was in favor of the Cowboys. But why I think it would be is because you could see examples of this rule being implemented, and while you don't like the rule, it is the rule. So I would think that we'd be seeing today is a bunch of highlights of similar situations that were called incomplete, and then why was this one called complete? And then all the conspiracy theorists out there would say, because it's the Cowboys and the league wants the Cowboys. So, yes, I think it would have blown up even bigger had they let that be a catch. But
maybe you're right. No, I mean, maybe you're right. I mean, going back to what happened the week before and everything else, the league always favors the Cowboys. Now, if McCarthy doesn't challenge the play at all, I don't think anyone says a word about it. I think if that play just happens and it goes on, I don't think anyone says a word. A good job by McCarthy.
If McCarthy doesn't
he saw what he saw.
If McCarthy doesn't challenge that, he's highly questioned after the game for why he should
get fired. You're right. Yeah. So I guess that's the argument in it. Listen, we do a bold moment of the weekend. How could anything but that be described as the bold moment of the weekend? A critical official's decision winds up deciding in a long way, deciding the outcome of a playoff game. Our bold moment is brought to you by Tabasco. Bold moments on the field deserve bold Tabasco flavor at home. Check out Tabasco.com to find the perfect recipe for your next game day party. Bold moments, bold flavor, Tabasco. By the way, I thought the Cowboys lost that game a bunch of different ways before it was quote-unquote stolen from them, and I'll explain to you the ways in a moment. I think you're going to disagree. Which will be good, because it means I'm going to yell at you, and your voice isn't so good today.
I know.
So I may win.
You may win that one. You're right.
The best of Mike and Mike.
Mike and Mike.
The best of Mike and Mike.
Mike and Mike.
Emmitt Smith with us here on our set with a Subway Fresh Take. Happy New Year, and always wonderful to see you, Emmitt.
Always great to see you. I love to see you.
Look, I'm assuming this is all you.
There you go again. Right? There you go again. The guy I've had to play against, the guy I missed most tackles against, he's still off the field. He still has to rip me.
But let's just start. I was following you on. I follow you on Twitter. Did you say finish the game or finish the job on Twitter? What's your phrase?
Finish. Finish. It was just finish the game. Let's conclude the game. Michael has this slogan going on this year, finish the fight. Mm-hmm. It's really finish the fight. And so yesterday I thought our team showed heart, showed great poise. They played well. They played very well, all except for the one fumble, period. Yeah. Outside of that, Dez went up, made a tremendous catch. It's still a catch. I think most people don't understand what an athletic move really is. For a guy to go up and maintain his poise in the air with two hands on the ball, bring it down and move it to one hand, and have that one hand control that ball all the way to the ground and till it hit the ground himself. To me, I thought it was a catch.
Listen, I thought the move to the end zone. I thought that would have made it a catch. So,
and I keep hearing the ref talk about the Calvin Johnson's catch. Well, yes, it was a catch also. Yeah. Because the guy is a mammoth of a man, has strong hands, and he can possess that ball way out from his body with one hand and control the ball all day, every day, 3 times on Sunday. Yeah. If you give him a chance to.
So we're going to see if they look at that rule in the offseason or not. But for this case, after review, it wasn't a catch. So, as a leader on that team, what needs to happen at that point on the side? Because there's still game left. Right. The defense ends up not stopping Green Bay. I mean, what needs to be said on that sideline after that call is reversed?
Well, obviously you got to put it behind you as quickly as possible, and you got to pick yourself up and move forward. But you got to understand how critical that was. It was 4th down, 4th and 1. Mm-hmm. I mean, come on. I mean, that right there was a body blow that's hard to recover, knowing that there's not much time left anyway. And so, yes, the defense had to come out and step up and try to make a stop. Unfortunately, we almost had one, but they made a great play. Yep. They get paid just like you and I get paid, goalie. Mm-hmm. But at the end of the day, it is what it is, and it doesn't feel good for the Cowboys fans, and it doesn't look good. But people in Detroit can say the same thing about us. Mm-hmm. And so, but the difference is the ball hit the guy in the butt versus hitting the guy in the hand.
Very true. Mike and Emmitt Smith. A couple of other things from that game. First of all, let's talk about DeMarco Murray. You mentioned the fumble yesterday, and that might be the one tiny blemish on the resume, as he did have a little bit of a fumbling issue this season. But overall, he broke many of your records and many others. He had one of the great seasons that we've ever seen in the NFL. What are your thoughts on what DeMarco Murray did this year?
You know what? To echo your sentiments, he did have a superb season. At the end of the day, I think DeMarco would give away the rushing title to have a chance to play in the NFC Championship game. I think he would rather that someone else have the rushing title and Dez make that catch and they go in and score the touchdown. But outside of that, DeMarco had a superb season. One of those, you're right, it's a magical season. And to me, it's like one of those coaches are in a rock and a hard place position. Do I allow this kid to go for the 2,000 or do I sit him? All because of my personal reasons. But at the end of the day, you only have so many opportunities to have a very, very special season. Everybody, whether it's Peyton Manning, whether it's Drew Brees, whomever it may be, there are only few moments in time where you can have one of those magical seasons. And this year was that year for DeMarco Murray, as we know of today. But as we move forward, he may have another opportunity. We don't know. But all of that's in the future. That's something that we cannot see into. That's something that we cannot really hang our hats on, because you must go out every year and reproduce what you did this year. Try to anyway, but every year is a different year.
So, and I want to compare careers here because you, Troy, and Irvin are all in the Hall of Fame. But with Dez, Romo, and Murray, how did their games compare to the counterparts of your guys?
I absolutely love it. I mean, what I love is that, if you will, the big three, you can call the big three, but it's really the big four when you have Jason Witten at the tight end spot. We had Jay Novacek. And, you know, you're talking about guys that don't really get a whole lot of attention, whether it's Alvin Harper, then you're talking about our wide receiver on the other side who scored 3 touchdowns this postseason. So, you know what? The great thing about it is, yes, Irvin, Aikman, myself, we got a lot of press. But this is why they call it a team sport, because everybody is involved. Everybody plays a significant role in the success of the entire team.
Well, what your team had and what this team has are great offensive lines, which also don't get nearly enough attention.
Exactly.
Your team had
this team has had great chemistry all year.
Yep.
Great chemistry all year.
Your team had a great defense. This one maybe not. If they make a few improvements there,
they're going to lose their. It looks like they're going to lose their
place.
coordinator, Rod Marinelli. Looks like he may go join Lovie Smith in Tampa Bay.
That's what I was reading last night. Mike and Emmitt Smith. You mentioned Peyton Manning just a moment ago, and you'd be a perfect person to ask this.
Why would I be so perfect?
Well, you'll find out. You're one of the greatest players of all time.
That already puts you in that company with him.
Yeah, so you can talk about Peyton Manning in that regard in a way that Mike cannot. All kidding aside, you're one of the great players of all time. You're coming towards the end. At what point did you make the conclusion? We're sitting here wondering whether Peyton will assess himself, will look at his performance the last few weeks yesterday and say, I can't be what I once was, and if I can't be that, then it may be time to sail off into the sunset.
Right.
How did that thought process work for you when you saw your own production falling off? You knew you weren't what you had been. How did the decision ultimately reach you that it was time to call?
That part never crossed my mind. The question becomes whether or not I can be as productive as the next guy that's taking over my job. That was my only question. And then it became a question to me, what am I doing? I have accomplished just about everything that I wanted to accomplish in the game of football. Winning Super Bowls, becoming MVPs, doing all these different things. And I got the rushing title and everything else. It's like, what is left for me to do? My body is 35 at the time, and I cannot take too many more hits. The only thing going to happen from this point is for me to get hurt or for me to digress so badly that it's going to hurt me emotionally. And so I came to the conclusion when I came back here to Dallas and played against the Cowboys in Texas Stadium, when I got dressed in the visitors' locker room. It broke my heart so bad that right then and there, I think in my mind, I said, you know what, this is not right. I'm not supposed to be in this locker room. I cried for 40 minutes before the game in front of all of my teammates, sobbing like a baby. And that's when I realized that it was time for me to move on. But I had to honor out my contract with the Arizona Cardinals, and I wanted to give them the best last 2 years I can possibly give them.
Wow, that's a very, very
amazing story.
That's what happened for me. Now, I don't know what Peyton's going to do.
But let me ask you this about Peyton, because I addressed this earlier. How difficult is it in the off season, as when you're recovering from everything and getting ready to start maybe work toward another season? How hard is it to honestly self-assess where you are, to honestly look at yourself to the point where you may say, you know what, I don't think I can do it anymore? Is that hard to do?
Well, I don't think so. Not for a guy like Peyton Manning, who has a Super Bowl, who has MVPs, who has a whole bunch of records himself. I think for him, it's mostly, is there a quarterback out there that can beat me at my job on this team? And is there a guy that can carry this mantle to the next phase? And I think that's something that Peyton is going through. And I'm still good enough to help this team win a number of games or transition to a guy that can take over this position. And I think that's what he's going through in his mind. Now, I mean, at the end of the day, when I was here at the Cowboys, I did not want to give my job up to Troy Hambrick. I really didn't. I mean, as a matter of fact, I would have took a pay cut to play. I'm serious. I would have played for Jerry Jones for $1 million. It wouldn't have mattered. I just wanted to stay here in Dallas, but we never got to that point. To me, it's like, okay, if I'm going to give up my job, I want to give it up to someone that I believe is worthy of that job. And that person can transition and carry the mantle even further. And so those are some of the things that I was weighing in my mind. And so physically, I still felt like, I ended up with 937. I started my career at 937. So how can you say I digressed? Right. And I was 35 when I ended up with 937, and I missed a couple games. So 1,000 yards to me is nothing in the National Football League, especially if you got guys that can give you just a chance to make something happen.
Mike and Emmitt Smith is here. We're presented by Progressive Insurance, creators of the Name Your Price tool. Choose from a range of coverage options and pick the price that works for you. One other thing quickly, Emmitt, before we get to the reason that you're with us today. Just curious your perspective. I'm reading a bunch of stories suggesting that the Seattle defense right now, based upon how well they've performed and the potential for them to stay together, that we could be looking at one of the greatest defenses of all time. As you watch the Seattle defense play right now, just how good do you think they are?
Oh, my gosh. They remind me so much of us in 93, I believe, when Charles Haley and everybody. They're playing tremendous team football. They're running the rock well. They're well balanced. They're well coached. Defensively, Chancellor is doing so much out of the secondary, coming down and making plays in the run game as well as in the passing game. Their overall defense, to me, I don't see a weak spot in that defense. I really don't. And they're so aggressive. That's what I love about watching them play. I mean, when I see our Dallas Cowboys, they're flying around the football. This team here not only flies around the football, but they stop you at the point of contact. And that's a tremendous thing to do. I mean, you don't get a whole lot of extra yardage from this team.
I said in that game, I actually tweeted during that game, this is because Carolina defense is doing it as well. Now, Marshawn Lynch broke a couple later in the game, but that was some of the best tackling I've seen out of both those teams in a league where tackling is horrible right now. Yes. And Cam Chancellor, as somebody tweeted, knocks the soul out of you. He's a freak safety. He reminds me back at the David Fulcher days of about a 230-pounders back with the Cincinnati Bengals.
It's unbelievable. He probably has 2 or 3% body fat.
In my next life, I want to come back as Cam Chancellor.
Mike and Mike.
What more could you possibly ask for than what we have this morning? If you were a fan of the great game of football, I know what you could ask for. You could ask for a Hall of Famer to join us in studio, and that's exactly what we have. Live in Fort Worth this morning, presented by Progressive Insurance. Jimmy Kimmel will be here in just a couple of minutes, which we're obviously looking forward to, but now it feels like a Monday because the Hall of Famer Cris Carter is here with his Subway Fresh take, and he is fired up in his red sweater.
This is the Hall of Fame day. Earlier in the week, we had the Net Worth Day with Mark Cuban and Jerry Jones talking about a whole lot of net worth. Here we have Emmitt Smith and now CC, the
Cris Carter, getting set to coach in the and pick the players for the Pro Bowl and all that kind of stuff. So all the promos this weekend with you and Michael Irvin. But let's get right to it. All right, we'll talk about Ohio State coming up later in the hour. But I have been looking forward from the moment I woke up this morning to this moment when I can ask you, Cris Carter, who made more great catches than just about anybody that ever played the game. Did Des Bryant catch that ball yesterday?
No, and it's fairly simple because he didn't complete the act. Catching the ball is a number of different segments. Your hands to the ball is a segment. As far as a body part, touching the ground, or your 2 feet being inbounds and being in the end zone or on the sideline, that's another part. A football move in the act, once you have control of it, that's a part. Also, at the end, does the ball touch the ground, or does it move, or do you gain any advantage from the ground? And does the ground have an effect on the ball? So those are all parts of catching the football. People don't realize that when Dez missed the ball the first time, that was one of his problems, because the whole act of catching the football, it starts over. See, that's not a catch right there. That's not a catch right there. All right? That's the first time he has the ball. So then once he first has it, that's when he begins to lunge, because he didn't catch it clean. So there was no football move. So once it was deemed to be caught, then the ball hit the ground. So then it was going to be incomplete.
Now,
so for me, it was fairly easy to think it was going to be incomplete.
I agreed completely yesterday. That was what I thought. I know the rule, and I agreed. The more times I watch this from an angle, again, CC is referring to what we're seeing on ESPN2. And for those of you on ESPN Radio, I'll explain as best I can what you're seeing. You're seeing the camera from the other side. It does look to me. Now, we're watching it in super slow motion, so obviously this it happens very quickly.
But that's what they see when they're watching the replay.
But it looks to me like for some substantial period of time, and that time might actually in real time be half of a second, he possesses the ball with his left hand and is making an effort to extend it. Is he not extending right now on the view you were looking at, trying to extend the ball because he has control of it to the goal line?
Did you see him double catch the ball?
Yes, because the ball is contacted slightly by 37.
Right there. All right? He's just got the ball right there. Relax, man. Get behind the camera. All right? Let us do
Kramer is all excited.
Relax, right?
Go ahead.
Like you have to finish the play. And the finish of that, the only way, this is the way I teach kids. Well, Coach, how do I know I called it? When you can get the ball and hand the ball to the referee, that means you catch the ball can hit the ground, but the ball can't move. If Dez, even when the ball was in his left bicep, if it had stayed there compared to popping up, if it had stayed right there, it would have been a catch. But when that ball pops up and leaves, then you got to start all over again.
Here's my question, and I want to ask it to whoever we can. From what I understood after, unless I heard wrong, if you're making a football move is considered stretching for the goal line. If it is, I thought he did that. So I thought if he had the ball, even if you say he had possession at the end like that, I'm with you. I thought his then stretch was a football move, and if it was a football move, then that wouldn't have been considered an incomplete pass. That's what I got after from some of the officials. I guess that's what I thought. I thought he was making a football move toward the goal line with the ball. Did you not feel that way?
I mean, I think it's a judgment call.
Right, sure.
I think that him re-catching the football is the point of contention. Then once the ball hits the ground, see, you're deeming him, he's already caught the ball.
No.
Before the ball hit the ground, you have to deem that he's caught the ball.
Even under your scenario, I thought he had possession with his left hand, even after re-catching in his left hand.
Did he have 2 feet down?
Well, he was falling with his feet.
Well, but it's not done yet.
And also from what I heard from the officials, it didn't matter about the feet because it was about falling down.
Body part.
So it doesn't matter about the feet.
I just say feet to help out the novice.
Right.
It's either feet or a body part. They're all the same in continuing the act of it being a catch.
Right. So maybe what you're saying, if I'm understanding you correctly, is that he can be extending his arm trying to get it over the goal line, but that still doesn't mean he has completed a catch yet.
No.
Right? So what you're saying is that when that ball bounces, the part where you see him roll over and then the ball leaves contact with him, for an eighth of a second, that ball and Dez Bryant are no longer one. If that had never happened, you're saying it would have been a catch. If he had managed to maintain it through that, it would have been a catch.
Absolutely.
Because then the ground would not have caused him to lose control.
The Birdie Manual rule. That's why they changed the rule. Tampa Bay playing against St. Louis, the NFC Championship. Birdie Manual catches a dig route across the field. He catches it, and in the air, the ball hits the ground. I had a number of my catches taken away, but the ball didn't move.
Right.
Okay, so then they changed the rule. We saw Calvin Johnson have a very similar example. You have to finish the act of catching the ball, which is a number of things. Catching it with two hands is one, making a football move or getting a body part or 2 feet down. All those are acts in catching the football. It's not just one thing.
See, and I guess that's what I want to ask. I thought I got that. Maybe I heard it wrong, that reaching for the goal line was an act, so if that was so that would be a judgment call by the official. On that, I've heard everybody say, well, they got it right to the rule, but I hate the rule. Do you feel that way? And
no, I love the rule.
You love the rule. Okay.
Yes. If you want to catch the ball in the NFL, the reason we have it a little bit different, it really helps clear it up. Hand the ball to the referee. The ball cannot move in any touchment on the ground. The ball can touch the ground and catching it, but the ball can't move. Once you start to realize that and realize the cleanest definition of it is control, hand to the referee, and then you'll get the results that you want.
We are Mike and Mike, Cris Carter in our studio, and obviously made a lot of catches over the course of time. We'll have Jimmy Kimmel live on our set coming up in about 25 minutes. Let's go around some of the other. Let's get to the rest of that game yesterday, because obviously it's what everyone's going to talk about, but it's a classic NFL playoff game between these two long-standing great teams. What did you take away from Aaron Rodgers' performance, particularly in that second half when he clearly did not have his mobility?
I've torn my left calf and my right calf both in the same season. I knew he'd have a tremendous amount of problems. Didn't do a whole bunch of running during the course of the week, so I thought that he would struggle, and I questioned if he could make it through the whole game. Because as you go on, and thank goodness it's his left calf, not his right calf, where he's pushing off throwing, but it's a great effort by a great player, and that's why you let great players play injured compared to hurt, because they can come up with this type of performance. Very, very impressive what he did, knowing what he was under and how he was feeling at halftime. And there's nothing you can do for it. There's no pill you can take. There's no shot you can take. You just got to gut it out. And he became more mind over matter and went inside of himself, very, very disciplined, and played a great game, made some unbelievable throws, on one leg.
And it looked like in the second half he let it go even more. You could certainly tell in the first half he was playing gingerly on it, no doubt about it. Second half, while he's not going to run, and even this week, don't anybody fool yourself into think it's going to heal enough for him to be able to. There's no way that's going to happen. So the most he's going to be able to do this week is going to be able to get out and move in the pocket more, because even though he went side to side a little bit, he really didn't run out of the pocket like he normally did, staying behind the line of scrimmage.
Well, that was what I wanted to ask both of you. Is there any reason to expect him to be any better a week later than he was yesterday? I'm talking about physically on the calf.
Well, this is the thing. I don't know how much tearing or scarring was done yesterday, but as I started playing more, I got more comfortable. So you have to realize, too, that this is his third game playing with the calf. So you start to understand the Tampa Bay game, of course, the Detroit game. Then he gets the bye week, didn't do a whole bunch of running. But unless he did something else yesterday, I felt as if the longer I went, the more I was comfortable with the injury and less fear of tearing.
That's why I do think he'll move out of the pocket. I don't expect any 15-yard runs down the field.
No, that's not
going to happen.
No.
I was really surprised to hear in the pregame when they had said that was really the first time he ran. And listen, just like this week, he's not going to do much this week. There's no need for him to do that. But I think he'll be more. But I completely agree with CC. When I tore my calf as well, it's something you get a feel for. And now we're at different positions. Wide receiver have to run a lot. Quarterback that runs, D lineman, they're a little different how you deal with injuries. But as far as getting comfortable on it, like CC said, I do think he will. He looked way more comfortable in the second half. So he will have some more of the mobility that he's had during the season, but he certainly won't be the 100% guy that's going to hurt you down the field like a Russell Wilson can hurt you down the field.
Yeah, he's going to be under more duress.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
From Seattle. Yeah. I forget who, I want to give credit where it's due. I forget who tweeted it, but in the entourage, or whatever the word I'm looking for is, in the barrage of tweets about Cam Chancellor and his performance on Saturday night, someone tweeted, "When I come back again, I want to come back as Cam Chancellor." And I thought that one said it about, I've never seen, he may not be the best player on that team. I don't know who is.
No.
I've never seen a player.
Russell Wilson.
Or Richard Sherman.
I'll take Bobby Wagner.
The best player on the team, he said.
Yeah.
On the team, Russell Wilson.
Okay, well, whoever. My point is, I've never seen a guy jump over the line of scrimmage on field goals back-to-back plays. I mean, that was I don't know that I've ever seen anyone do that. Is that the timing? How has he managed to do that?
I've seen a few guys do it, but
once I've seen them do it once. I've never seen them do it on back-to-back plays.
Yeah, I've never seen it done on back-to-back plays, but I don't know why the right guard, the next time he jumped up there, why he didn't knock him into the rack.
Isn't that the truth?
How do they let that happen?
Isn't that the truth? And what happens is you watch film, you get the timing of the snap, you look at the hold or what he's doing.
Oh, they were giving it away. You could tell
without a doubt. So he was timing up, but you're right. After that next time, I mean, I know the guard's got to worry about who's on him, but how you're not taking care of a little business on that.
But this is the problem, though. If he happens to touch anyone, his players
it's a penalty,
or the opposition with his cleats, in any form or fashion, it's a penalty.
Right.
So you got to be a freakish athlete, like to be able to make that play, and for the coach to give you the leeway compared to extending the drive for the offense. He's a tremendous athlete, and that's what they do with Seattle. They play the special teams. They got a lot of starters. They try to maximize every play, and that's what you see with Cam making tremendous effort on the special teams.
As I said, the tackling in that game, these are the top 2 defenses the last 4 weeks of the season, was the way tackling needs to get again in the NFL. They were hitting you, and you were stopping. Now, Marshawn broke a few tackles later in that game, but I thought both teams tackled pretty well, especially Seattle. And when Cam Chancellor hits you, you're done running. You're done moving with the ball. As somebody said, he knocks the soul out of you.
Mike and Mike, Cris Carter is here. Did we see the end of one of the greatest careers of all time yesterday? We'll get CeCe's take on that coming up in 1 minute. Don't forget, Jimmy Kimmel will be here coming up shortly, and I'm told we'll have Dean Blandino, the NFL VP of officiating, to explain in all full detail the Des Bryant call as we continue. But right now, a word from Citrix Go-To Meeting. Mike, the people we work with, clients, vendors, coworkers, not always in the same office or city, not even in the same country. We need to be able to meet, collaborate with them to get things done, but travel is expensive and time-consuming. Communicating on the phone or email alone is not enough. It's why millions of professionals and businesses, large and small, rely on Citrix Go-To Meeting, and you should too.
With Go-To Meeting, hold as many meetings as you need with anyone from anywhere in one virtual space, gang. Share screens and present in real time. Turn on webcams. You're going to see each other with high-definition video conferencing. Go-To Meeting allows you to engage and connect just like you're in the same room. We absolutely recommend Go-To Meeting, and you want to try it today to see what it can do for your business. To do that, Go-To Meeting, free for 30 days. That's what we're going to give you. Visit GoToMeeting.com and click the Try It Free button. That's GoToMeeting.com for your free 30-day trial.
We are Mike and Mike, presented by Progressive Insurance. Jimmy Kimmel on his way. Cris Carter here with his Subway Fresh take. Des Bryant tweeted, by the way, after the game, CC. This is what Des tweeted. And again, I mean, you guys are speaking a language that most people don't know because you understand, catching the football in a way that even other NFL players wouldn't understand. This is what he tweeted. As I went to the ground, I rolled over and I tipped the ball to gain better control. We lost and I accept it, but please change that rule. That's what Des said. Does it make sense?
They're not going to change the rule. No, he don't make sense.
It does. That doesn't make sense.
No,
the ball to gain better
hit the
control.
ground.
No, I understand. He's talking about in the possession. He's trying to say that intentionally he tipped it to himself compared to when he went vertical and went to catch the high point the ball, which he does better than anyone in the league. All right, he's saying he tipped it to himself.
Right.
But he doesn't realize that once you tip it, the whole process of catching the ball, it starts over.
So it does look like the more times I watch it, I had not realized that the corner actually makes contact with the football,
Absolutely.
which affects that.
Yeah.
So anyway, look, we'll talk about that call until the end of time. Dean Blandino will join us. It's going to be one of those calls that whether it was the right call or the wrong call, and Chris, you clearly think it was right, and I think by the letter of the law, most people do.
No, I think so.
But it doesn't change the fact that to have a game of that magnitude decided on something that infinitesimal
I'm just
is
Tell
frustrating.
you, if I'm sitting there today, I know it's not a catch. Now, Des and them can say whatever they want. They're in the moment. They're emotional and everything. But I know as a wide receiver and sitting down talking to referees, the way it's always been explained, I would know when that ball hit the ground and it moved, all right? Forget about it popping up. But when it moved, all right, it was going to be deemed incomplete.
Because by it moving, by definition, that means the ground is helping you catch the ball.
Yeah, you don't have control.
Right. All right, Mike and Mike, CC is here. Then let's get to the other one. I felt sad watching the Broncos yesterday. Peyton Manning is one of the greatest players that's ever lived, and I hate to see great ones going out that way. And I don't know if he's going out or not, but as you watch
Where's
him,
he going? You think he's going to resurrect? You think he's going to find the fountain of youth?
I think he might come back and play again, I guess is what I'm saying. He may not retire. It may not have been his last game. But as I said earlier today, I think it was his last shot. I think that was his last best chance.
Okay, if that's his last chance, then why would Peyton play?
Maybe he just wants to play. That's the only thing I can think of.
No, I don't think he's going to think it's his last chance. You may think that.
But you know what I'm saying, though?
Oh, yeah.
Because when he thinks he don't have a shot, he's definitely going to quit.
What do you think? What do you think? Because Mike brought up that for much of the season he looked good, and then he had some injuries to his legs, and he clearly is not in a position physically now where he can overcome that. He can't throw when he's not in the right position, falling back, whatever the case may be. Do you think Peyton Manning still has it in him right now to be a top-level, upper-echelon Super Bowl champion quarterback?
Absolutely. He could be. Yes, he can still be that if he wants to. But Peyton's biggest problem is the last couple years. Not only the next, but the last couple years. Last year he got hurt. He struggled through the season trying to stay healthy. And as a veteran player, you get a little frustrated. For one, the monumental losses are hard to deal with. When you get blown out in the Super Bowl, you get embarrassed. You lose another 9th time that he's lost the first time of the playoffs. Like, yeah, it's a lot of X's and O's, but, man, your heart can only take so much. So much disappointment. You only have so much fight in you as a human being. So for me, I think right now, yeah, it's about his body, but it's also about, man, can I do this? Am I willing to go out there in April and throw 500 balls? Am I willing to gather up all these receivers and try to go through that grunt work where no one's watching? Yeah, yesterday's easy. Everyone's watching. But can I get myself to get in the top shape mentally and physically one more time? Those are the questions that the great players have to ask themselves, because that is the hardest part. The season, if you can make it through, it's easier because you have so much emotion. But the preparation and not wanting to do that type of preparation forces most of the greats into retirement.
I'll even change that a little bit. I don't think you have to be great to do that. I think that's for all players. If you don't want to go through what you have to, every player has to work in the off season. Great players, foot soldiers have to work in the off season. And if you don't want to put in that time, that's what I've always said. I think people retire because of that. Just what CC said. If you're not willing to put in the time when nobody's watching, the games are easy. Everybody says go, look, you still play. I'd suit up right now on a Sunday. I'd get destroyed, but I do it. But I don't want to do what from February to August. Right. That's what players don't want to do anymore, and don't want to put in that work. And we know the work Peyton puts in. And if you're not willing to do what you've been doing your whole career, then it would be.
And that's just not showing up. I mean, there's a lot of people who play, and everyone who ever plays in the NFL, they all work hard. But the amount of work a quarterback has to do is totally different. Now, when you're asking me, Chris, do you want to play again? I played 16 years, and at the end, it was hard, and it was difficult. And the losses, they meant more because they meant less opportunity.
Was it harder physical or mental for you?
It was harder mentally because I wasn't hurt. I pretty much went through my whole career without being hurt. So I could still run, catch, and do those things. But I got tired of the meetings. I got tired of meeting with young players. I got tired of them talking about stupid stuff they did last night, sleeping in the meeting. I got tired of them not knowing the playbook, knowing the down distance situations. I got tired of that.
Mike and Mike, Cris Carter is here. We do In the Zone every week. It's brought to you by AutoZone. Invest your tax return in your car this year. Do that job you've been putting off. AutoZone has the parts, accessories, and expert advice you need. Protect your investment. Get in the zone, AutoZone. We just pick a player who was in the zone during the weekend. Who do we give it to?
Aaron Rodgers.
Yeah, boy, yeah.
Aaron Rodgers.
Or Brady. I mean, Brady was tremendous, too.
No, Brady was not that good. He
really?
Finished strong. He was inaccurate. He got knocked around, all right? I would say above average to start. Now, he finished with a victory, but his overall game, he was not great in that game. Now, they put a lot of pressure on him, and he was inaccurate at the beginning. But he finished it off with the drive, and he made the throws when he had to make them. But I wouldn't say that was one of his great performances. Actually, Flacco might have played better than him.
Flacco played a game, too, for that. Certainly had one. But Aaron Rodgers and what he was dealing with certainly.
Yeah, to do it with the injury, let's give it to him quickly because we have so many things working in the hour. Jimmy Kimmel is on the way, and then Dean Blandino is going to jump in. CC, obviously, tonight, a huge night for you, all of Buckeye Nation, everybody getting set to watch. And I guess the real question is, what do you expect Ohio State's plan to be defensively to deal with the tempo that Oregon has given so many people so much trouble with?
Well, Ohio State plays with a fast tempo. Urban's played with a fast tempo wherever he's been, so they practice a lot against it. The lack of substitutions and realizing the situations. You really have to try to win on first or second down, which slows them down because they run a lot of the same plays. So your rotation is a lot tighter, but you really have to be tuned into the game, into the completions, incompletions, and their substitutions. But the number one thing, I just got off the phone with Urban while you were teeing me up, and the number one thing is lining up, Chris, line up and give ourselves a fighting chance. But he said, man, we didn't come to Dallas to be just messing around. You know, we come here, we come to play a football game. We're going after it offensively and defensively. I like my football team. That's what he told me.
Yeah, I don't think and there's any doubt these teams are going to be ready to play. And that is this offense, not only for execution, but it's about tiring out a defense and getting them to not all be on the same page. If you've got 9 guys playing one defense and 2 playing another, there's going to be a hole somewhere.
Force them to throw the ball. Oregon is a veer run ball. Not to throw. They're a veer to run the ball.
That's exactly right.
Make them throw the ball.
Think about the plays. The plays are regular plays, save for some, but they're regular plays. So down and distance is key. You can run as fast as you want your plays, but if we put you in a 3rd and 7, well, now you can go, and even if you don't huddle up, we know you got to pass for the high percentage says you have to pass, as opposed to it being 3rd and 2 and they're going fast where they have the option to do either. But you get them in 3rd and long, even if they go quick pace, at least in your mind you can say, okay, we put them in a passing situation.
Let's go to one of the innovators, Chip Kelly. What's his problem in the NFL? Not converting on 3rd down. Right. Yeah. So you keep going fast, but you also keep giving the ball
back. Yeah.
So they give the ball back, and Ohio State start running the ball on them. Then you start tick.
To me, that's the key. Run them running the ball.
We're going to run the ball.
I think that's the amazing stat that has not gotten enough attention in this game. Oregon runs 73 plays a game. Ohio State runs 72.
Yeah, absolutely.
So I don't think that enough people have talked enough about that. Okay, Jimmy Kimmel is on the way. We'll get him here. We'll get Dean Blandino in. Predictions on the game tonight, and a whole lot more on a jam-packed Monday in Fort Worth. Mike and Mike.
Mike and Mike.
With us, Mike and Mike, on a really busy day. Cris Carter here with us in Fort Worth, and we're about to bring in Jimmy Kimmel, which is a treat for us. Talking football, among other things. Winners yesterday. The Colts knock off the Broncos. All the discussion about whether that's the last we will see of Peyton Manning. Packers beat the Cowboys. The disputed call, a big part of the discussion. Cris Carter says there isn't any room for controversy. It wasn't a catch. And, of course, we are all here because tonight it's the national championship game, Oregon and Ohio State. You will see the action on ESPN and hear it all right here on ESPN Radio. Our Sports Center is brought to you by Red's Apple Ale.
Crisp like an apple, brewed like a beer, a little different, a little daring, anything but ordinary. Red's Apple Ale, pick different.
Sometimes with Cris Carter here in our studio, you meet someone, and it seems strange to say it's nice to meet you because you feel like you've known them all of your life. Ever since Win Ben Stein's Money, I feel like I've known Jimmy Kimmel for a very long time, and it's a pleasure to meet you.
Well, thank you. It's a pleasure to be here on your Texas-decorated set.
It is very.
I have gone really old school on this. I said we're at the Cartwrights on Bonanza.
Yeah, which is wagon wheel,
which unfortunately for any 25-year-old has no clue what I'm talking about.
The cowhide seat, just like I'm sure Texans love to be depicted.
We're not stereotyping at all.
The only difference between this set and your set is they spent money on you and the set. They only spent money on these two leagues.
Okay, well, that's the way to go.
And we're just going to throw this hodgepodge together and then get back home.
If it's going to be one or the other, they got it the right way.
Yes, exactly right.
All right, we'll talk a lot about your show tonight, which you'll be doing live, of course, every night on, and everyone knows, on ABC. So terrific comedy, and you got a bunch of stuff planned for the game tonight.
Oh, yeah.
But before we get to that, we know you're a huge football fan. Your thoughts on yesterday's action. First off, Peyton Manning. Just watching him yesterday, a lot of people wondering, will we ever see what we expect from Peyton Manning again?
I'm sure he'll appreciate the lowlights video reel you guys showed to celebrate his. I don't know. You know what? I mean, if he did hurt his legs, maybe he will heal over the offseason, and he's a guy that I don't think you can ever count out. But the fact of the matter is I know nothing.
It's just he's one of those guys.
I just hope he keeps doing commercials. That's I think number one.
Yeah,
his endorsement career.
As we see now, that and Joe Montana jumping to do his pizza commercials now.
That's right.
But yeah, he's one of those guys that just seems like he's going to play forever. That you'll always expect to be on the field somehow, some way, no matter what. Which means you'll always get to joke about it, I guess, as he gets older.
Are there an endless supply of Mannings waiting to replace him? I mean, it seems like that family should be producing strapping young boys.
I think the Mannings have put a nice dent in the history of football.
I'd say so, yeah.
And I don't think Eli is done. And in the way the Giants finished up their season, I think that there may be more big wins in his future. But I say it again. I thought if that wasn't his last game yesterday, I think it was his last chance. And I wouldn't be at all surprised to see him make the decision to walk away. We'll have to see. Jimmy, what did you think of the controversial call yesterday with Des Bryant?
Well, I think that in baseball, the tie goes to the runner. I think that if there's a dispute, it should go to – I mean, the fact of the matter, it was a pretty spectacular catch. I heard Chris talking about it, and I was surprised that I would think you'd be on the side of the receiver, Chris. It is a little bit different when you go out of bounds, isn't it? I mean, you can as long as your big toe is touching the field, it counts as a catch. But if you're going into the end zone, there's an entirely different standard.
That's not true. That's not true. Going to the sidelines and the end zone, you still have to control the ball. If you get the ball on the sideline, you get your toe tap in, you go down the ground, and the ball hits the ground and the ball comes up, that's not a catch either.
I would like to see it. I think in general in sports, we see these replays always in slow motion, and sometimes I think it's important to see them at regular speed.
Yes.
Because did look like he was hanging out. He had that ball for quite a long time. Of course, it's slow motion.
Yeah, frame by frame. It's like, look at how long he's had the ball, in slow motion.
It did seem like, though, he had the ball and then was extending it to try to get to the end zone, which to me indicates some kind of control.
So you as a receiver, knowing you say receivers are divas, if that was you actually on the field, would you be calling that a catch?
No, because I know.
But I know you know now, but I didn't know you know
I'm about what's right, man. It ain't about no wide receiver. I'm about what's right. Y'all bring me on here, you ask me an opinion, I tell you what I think is right. By the rules, I called 1,101 balls, and a bunch of them was taken away just like that. All right? So it's just what about's right. Like, the rules of the game, I just try to make it simple for the fans so they can enjoy it, so they're not frustrated with the call. It's a real call, and it's part of catching it's your job. It's not college. It's not CFL. It's pro football, and the requirements are the strictest.
Mike and Jimmy Kimmel. That leaves very little room for debate.
I know. Like, what are we going to argue with that?
What are we going to say about that?
Right now, when I played, that's not how it was.
I like it.
Between the three of us, he caught 1,098 more balls than we did. Golick had 3 interceptions.
Yeah, that does count as 3.
Madden bashed him the whole way.
We're live in Fort Worth again. Game tonight. We're brought to you in part by Napa Auto Parts. All right, so let's talk about what you got going on tonight. And you've got a bunch of stuff that you were putting together in the pregame, right? I'm told that you're not doing the show after the game tonight, but you got a pregame special.
Yeah, we have a little pregame segment. We have Mean Tweets, a special college football.
I love Mean
Tweets.
Tweets.
My God, they're so good.
So we got some coaches, we got some ESPN personalities, and we collected a whole bunch of mean things that people said about them and asked them to read them. And it's funny because when you do it with celebrities, most of them know what's going on, but there are some of the people involved in this one just genuinely don't seem to know why they're doing this or what this is. So they're just reading mean things people said about them.
And you just obviously going for that natural reaction from them.
Ideally, yeah.
Yeah, I agree. That's why you could never do it. You would start to cry.
Okay.
He would tear up.
Do you get upset when you read that stuff?
I don't read it. We've had this debate a million times. There are 2 different kinds of people on Twitter. I'm very active on Twitter, but I tend not to read the stuff that gets sent to me. The second I see a nasty one, it bothers me, so I just put it aside.
You show a lot of self-control, and especially in sports, you get a lot of
where a lot of people will write back, and that's fine. If you want to do that, that's fine. But you have to have the maturity to do it, because once you start getting involved in a fight with somebody, that really, the only one who really looks bad in that, I think, is you. So I do my best. If I see something that bothers me, I've made a deal with myself. I'm putting the phone down until I don't think about it anymore.
Walk in the other room, cry a little bit, and then come back out.
If I see something on one of my tweets I don't like, I tweet back, your mama. Right? Then I block them.
And then that's it.
That's what I do.
Then we win.
That's the Hall of Fame version of that going on tonight.
That's called the high road.
Your mama. Tell them that. Whatever they say after that, tell them your mama.
Oh, why? Who is your favorite? Like, what is the difference between, we interview a million athletes here.
Yeah.
We interview the occasional movie or television star, but not nearly that often. You obviously interview mostly celebrities and the occasional athlete. What do you find the difference is between having a ball player on your show versus having an actor or an actress?
Well, I worked at Fox. I did NFL stuff for a long time, and I remember specifically once we had a very important comedy bit, and there was a major player who refused to be a part of it. His name was Cris Carter. He's sitting right here. He stared me down and did not respond at all to my request. And that is true. And
really? You did that to him?
That is true. Yes, he did. Yes, he did.
Don't believe that.
And to God, it happened. I remember it.
He is our Monday. Come on, man.
You know what? It's easier for me to interview athletes in capacity as a talk show host because I think it's a little something different for them, and they're not really necessarily being asked about the game or how they played or what they think about the next. I ask them about different subjects, so I think they're a little bit more open when I'm on the show. But
if we're on your show, it's a different format.
It is.
You know, the sirens haven't gone off. It's pretty.
Which you will not be, by the way. You will not.
I mean, good things have happened. You're not going on there being, 2020.
Right.
Who are some of the more gregarious athletes that you've...
Oh, well, Charles Barkley is always a lot of fun. The great thing about Charles is they have publicists and that sort of thing who try to direct the conversation in a specific way. So they'll say, Don't ask Charles about gambling. Do not talk to Charles about drinking. He does not want to talk about those things. And I'm like, okay, I guess he doesn't want to talk about gambling. Drink. As soon as he comes out, immediately into the gambling and drinking. I mean, it's like, I don't even bring it up. He goes right into it.
Yeah.
So he's a lot of fun. Shaq is always a lot of fun. Shaq is one of those guys that you got the idea during his playing career that he only knew 4 words and mumbled those words, but I find him to be.
I like when you did the free throw contest with him. That was very.
Yeah, that's
good.
right. Yeah, he's fun. Kobe is a lot of fun. Most of the athletes I have a pretty good time with. For me, it's a nice break. It's probably the same thing for you in reverse. It's a nice break from talking about movies and showing a clip and what did you think about this project and how did you prepare for it.
The actors like coming on here because we don't ask them who they're dating and all that kind of stuff.
The only actor that really scared us we had on was Liam Neeson.
He's scary, yeah.
He does.
He's an imposing guy.
He's scary, and his favorite sport is boxing. So it's not a great mixture if you really tick him off on what he's going to do. So, yeah, that was a tough one. And he has a particular set of skills.
Yeah.
He does.
The new one is out. Mike and Mike, Jimmy Kimmel again. For tonight's game, he's got mean tweets in the pregame, lord of the poster board at halftime. And you see him every single night, of course, late night on ABC. Just one of the funny guys. And in all sincerity, we've never met before, but you just strike me as the kind of guy I'm happy to see you do because you just seem like a normal person who all of a sudden became a TV star. You see a lot of people who look like they were born to be TV stars. You just seem like a normal guy who got a shot.
I was just going to say, is that a compliment or did you rip him somehow?
It was definitively meant as a compliment.
My servants and I thank you.
It's a pleasure to meet you, Jimmy. Thank you for coming by. Jimmy Kimmel, you'll see him on the game tonight. All right, we'll make our predictions on the college game tonight coming up next. Plus, Dean Blandino, the NFL's VP of officiating, once and for all with the explanation of the catch that wasn't.
The best of Mike and Mike.
Mike and Mike.
The call, the catch that wasn't, the touchdown that wasn't for the Dallas Cowboys. In the end, their season comes to an end. Mike and Mike, we're live in Fort Worth. Coverage of the championship game tonight, 7 Eastern on ESPN Radio and the free TuneIn Radio app presented by AT&T. Cris Carter is here, and it's our pleasure to welcome in now the NFL's VP of officiating, Dean Blandino. And as I said last week, a credit to them and to him. They've been very transparent on calls all season long, and they were out there yesterday explaining this one. Dean, Mike and Chris, how are you today?
I'm doing good. How are you?
We're well. Now, we know we've seen your reaction that the call, in your view, is the right call. Can you take us through the mechanics of it? So a challenge is made by Mike McCarthy. Gene Steratore walks off the field. Can you take us through exactly what happens from that point forward?
Sure. So Gene comes over, and what we're looking to see is whether the receiver was going to the ground to make the catch, which he was. He's stumbling. And the rule states if you're going to the ground to make the catch, you have to hold on to it throughout the entire process of contact in the ground. The ball hit the ground, it popped loose. That's what made it incomplete.
Is there anything about, and I heard Howie Long talking right after the broadcast about it, is there anything to, if he is trying to stretch out to the goal line with the ball, is that considered an act with the ball that would have changed this call? Is that a judgment call by the official, or does that have nothing to do with the call?
Well, that definitely has something to do with it, and you're looking to see if there's a football move, but that has to be a clear, overt act. He has to gather himself and then lunge for the goal line. And that's, in our view, that's not what happened. It was all his momentum. The ball hit the ground when his arm hit the ground, and then it popped loose. That would really have to be an overt act. Gather yourself and then lunge.
All right, so Dean, it's been made very clear, and Cris Carter explained it in very clear fashion this morning that it is the right call. I guess my question to you would be, if it is a call and a rule that this many football fans find confusing or ambiguous, do you think it's something that should be and will be looked at during the offseason?
Well, that's a fair point, and it's something that we want to certainly look at the rule. And this isn't new. This goes back. We had the Bert Emanuel play in 1999, the NFC Championship game, where prior to that, whenever the ball touched the ground during that process, it was incomplete. The rule was changed to say the ball can touch the ground provided that the receiver maintained control prior to, during, and after it touched. And now this is where we currently are. We went through it with Calvin Johnson. The competition committee looked at hours of tape that off season. And what we really have is we have a bright line. And it's easier to officiate. It's easier to look at in replay to say, okay, if you're going to the ground, you have to hold on to it.
Dean, let's go from that play. Let's go to the New England play, the play that John Harbaugh ended up getting a penalty for trying to get explained to him or explain to the officials what they may have done wrong. If you could explain when it was turned out to be Shane Vereen was actually an ineligible receiver and he had to report to the officials. The New England Patriots had a big gain on the play. Can you take us through that play and why it was absolutely the correct call or really no call, it was a legal play?
Sure. So any player can report to the referee to play a position that he's not eligible to do by number. We see it 99% of the time. It's the offensive lineman who's going to report and play tight end. The referee will make an announcement, 72 is eligible. We'll point him out to the defense so the defense knows that player can go down and catch a pass so they can cover him. This was the opposite. This was Vereen coming in, reporting to the referee that I'm ineligible. Then he goes out and he splits out wide, detached from the offensive line, but he's in an ineligible position. He's covered up by a tight end, by a wide receiver, and they had 7 men on the line. So by formation, it was legal. They reported to the referee. The referee pointed him out to the defense, and I think Baltimore's contention is that they just didn't have enough time, and we didn't give them enough time to adjust. That's something that we'll certainly review like we review all of our mechanics, but by formation and by what you're supposed to do, it was legal. They did report to the referee.
All right, Dean, we very much appreciate your time this morning. We know you jumped on short notice. Thank you. Have a good week. We'll see. I'm sure there'll be more controversy to discuss next week, and we'll do it then. Thanks.
All right, guys, take care.
That's Dean Blandino, the NFL's VP of Officiating. You heard him say they'll look at both rules during the offseason, and we'll see what happens. Mike and Mike, it's been an unbelievable morning. If you missed any part of it this morning with all these great guests, we had Emmitt Smith and CC for an hour, Jimmy Kimmel, whatever else it's been, you can download the Best of Mike and Mike podcast every morning on ESPNradio.com. Guys, let's take it out with this prediction. Try and put your heart aside, Cris Carter. Your head tells you who wins the national championship tonight.
The Buckeyes. One of the most impressionable national championships that you've seen in any sport. Urban Meyer, I think the last 10 years, he's had teams at Utah, 6 years in Florida, and 3 at Ohio State. At one point, they all were in the top 5. He's one of the great coaches coaching, and he's getting ready to build a powerhouse at Ohio State, and it starts tonight.
Really incredible what he's done. He's had success against 2 Heisman Trophy winners, against Sam Bradford and against Troy Smith. And if he does win, I would agree with everything you say, but I think Oregon's going to win. I think Mariota is one of the great college quarterbacks we've seen. I don't know, we won't worry about the next level just yet, but he's so efficient, and I think that shows tonight.
Are we expecting the game in the 30s tonight? We're not expecting the game in the teens, right?
No, I expect a lot of points.
Yep.
But we're going to eat the duck, the feet, the bill, the feathers, and everything. Buckeye style.
Wow, there you go. I got nothing for that. I don't have a horse in this race, so.
I have a horse, and it's a Buckeye. I've got Ohio State as well. I told you.
Oh, my goodness.
CC's not happy.
I need a horseshoe. I need some luck now. He's on the bandwagon.
He did it. Again, he did it.
Some teams are teams of
Buckeye
destiny.
Nation, search him out.
This has been the Best of Mike and Mike on ESPN Radio Pod Center. To hear more from Mike and Mike, log on to ESPNradio.com and become an ESPN Radio Insider.
The Best of Mike and Mike.
Why do we snack? Hunger? Taste? Because we have nothing better to do? Well, people who snack on almonds not only have something better to do, they're doing it. Almonds are heart health for those with heart. Packed with energy to keep up with anyone. It's that one-of-a-kind crunch that promises to keep you in the game for a long time to come. California almonds. Crunch on.